Human Rights and the Death Penalty by Tiffany Pickford. Capital punishment is defined by Wilson 2013 as a form of punishment which leads to the execution of a prisoner. The execution can involve a lethal injection, hanging, electrocution or beheading. This is why capital punishment is often referred to as a death penalty, as their penalty for the punishment they committed is death. Wilson 2013 also explains that in Western countries the death penalty was mainly used for serious crimes such as murder, and that its purpose was to be retributive and act as a deterrent. The death penalty can be seen to be a retaliatory punishment. People are killed because they have killed somebody else. The death penalty was a common form of punishment throughout the world, and it has now become controversial in many countries according to the OCADP website. Data 2017 studied that the death penalty is now only used in 84 countries worldwide, with China executing thousands of people a year and the United States using it frequently. The picture also examines how Saudi Arabia, Pakistan and Iran are some of the countries that still use this form of punishment. Data 2017 argues that the pressure and opinion of the use of the death penalty will one day get a worldwide view and that it will be abolished completely. The OCADP website argues that the death penalty has been abolished because of the human rights issue and how it violates the most basic human rights. Data 2017 stated that Spain, Switzerland and South Africa are just some of the countries that abolished the use of the death penalty because it violated human rights, whereas the United States, Singapore and Trinidad and Tobago believe that the death penalty does not violate any human rights at all. United for Human Rights 2017 argues that even after 60 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, violations are still happening, one of those violations being the death penalty. The United Nations Human Rights website describes human rights as a right that every human being has, no matter nationality, religion, language, national or ethnic origin. The first and most fundamental human right in which the death penalty can violate is Article 3 in the UDHR, which states that everyone has the right to life, liberty and security of person. This is the most important right that anyone can have because everyone has the right to live no matter what. For example, people who have committed a crime should have a right to live and should not be killed. The death penalty violates this right because people on death row do not have the right to their own life, as the state decides when they die and how they die. The offender must also stay on death row until the state decides when they are being executed, and this could be weeks, months or maybe even years. Article 5 in the UDHR states that no one should be subject to cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment or punishment. The death penalty violates this right as people on death row and those sentenced to the death penalty do experience cruel punishment because they are being executed for the crime they committed. Prokosh 1998 explains how the execution of the offender is both physical and mental torture. The physical side is the execution itself, and the mental torture is not knowing how long they will be on death row for, and the torture they put themselves through as they know they are going to be killed one day. Prokosh 1998 also stated that the torture is not only experienced by the prisoner themselves, but also their families, prison guards and the officers who carry out the execution. The third human right that the death penalty can violate is Article 6, Part 1 from the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, which states that everybody has the right to life and nobody should be deprived of their life. This is similar to the Article 3 of the UDHR, but states that nobody should be deprived of their life and should be protected by law. However, it is the law that is executing them, so the law is not protecting them at all, instead they are doing the opposite. Article 6 Part 2 of the ICCPR suggests that countries where the death penalty does exist, it should only be used for the most serious of crimes. This could suggest that the most serious crime that could be punished by execution is murder. If the prisoner murdered somebody, then they would be murdered themselves. This creates an argument as to whether you can execute prisoners if they have murdered people. It is just an ongoing circle of murder. The last human right that the death penalty violates is Article 6, Part 5 of the ICCPR, which states that pregnant women or those under the age of 18 cannot be punished with the death penalty. This right informs the law that the death penalty should not be used under any circumstance, but should definitely not be used for pregnant women or people under the age of 18. Even if the death penalty should not be used at all, it is still used in some countries because it can be justified in certain circumstances. Fish 2008 talks about eye for eye, tooth for tooth, first seen in Exodus, and the literal meaning of this is that the punishment mirrors the crime as such. So if somebody murders somebody, then they should be murdered. This meaning that capital punishment should be used and can be justified when murder has been committed. A report made by Amnesty International in 2007 stated that the death penalty is necessary, as bad as that sounds, because it punishes and prevents crime. This can link to the idea of retribution, that people should be punished for crime they commit and cannot be seen to go unpunished. Countries use the death penalty to prevent crime from happening or to deter people away from crime. There is still no evidence to suggest that the death penalty deters crime because they already decide the punishment of death to that prisoner and they stop crime by executing them. Therefore, they make the deterrence of crime a higher priority than the person's right to life. Amnesty International 2007 also stated that the law could not use the death penalty as a punishment and condemn killing because they are also killing people. This is a hypocritical attitude from the law as they punish people for killing people by killing those that committed that crime. Overall, this presentation has shown the debate and arguments surrounding the death penalty were focused to human rights. Even though the death penalty does still exist in some countries, the worldwide view has changed and it is slowly becoming unacceptable to punish people for committing crime by executing them. One of the reasons why the death penalty has been abolished is because it violates human rights, the rights that countries sign and should abide by, and yet they still violate them. The death penalty does violate the most fundamental human right, the right to life. Nobody, not even the law, should discredit this right, and everybody, even those that have committed a crime, should be entitled to this right. Even though the death penalty does not violate all 30 articles on the UDHR and 53 articles on the ICCPR, it does violate the most basic human rights of people. A reason as to why the death penalty should be used and why it is used in certain countries and states is the idea of punishment. Capital punishment punishes people for committing crimes such as murder or other serious crimes. The law believes the death penalty can deter crime from happening. One of the main arguments for the death penalty is eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth. People should be punished for murdering people by being executed themselves. However, the law is being hypocritical because they punish people for murdering others when in fact they are murdering people as well.